Good evening. This meeting of School Board 624 is now called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Shevik.
Here.
Story here. Swanson.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Heinecker.
Here.
Kimball.
Here.
And Newberg.
Here. Thank you. Would you all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You have before us this evening the agenda for the evening. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Move approval. Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. The next agenda item is the consent agenda. You'll see in your packets it's a matter of routine district business, approval of minutes, payment of invoices, correspondence, human resources items. And I'd like to call your attention particularly to the acceptance of gifts. We just greatly appreciate the financial support that our community members, our business leaders give to our school district. And you'll notice quite a long listing of community members who are supporting the Community Services Senior Program. A special thanks to them. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Next item on our agenda this evening is the public forum. It is an opportunity for the public to come to the podium and approach the school board with regard to matters on the agenda for the evening. We ask that if there is anyone interested, there is a contact information card on the table on the side of the room, so please fill it out. I do have one card from Mike McKenzie, and I would invite you up to the podium, Dr. McKenzie. And if there are others, if you'd like to fill out a card and give it to the clerk, that would be great. Thank you. Good evening, Dr. McKenzie.
Good evening. I'm here today, first of all, Michael McKenzie, Birchwood. I'm here today under the White Teachers Association banner that I work under, and I want to talk briefly about Policy 496. We at the White Bear Lake Teachers Association fully support a dress code policy. Employees should be clean, neat, well-groomed, and dressed in an appropriate manner for work. We also concur that common sense and good judgment should be the guiding factors for this policy. We believe that the vast majority of our membership already adheres to this high standard. However, we still have some concerns about the procedures listed in the dress code appendix that's in the board packet today. It's our hope that this policy will not be adopted as written. We'd like more time for our leadership and the district leadership to fine-tune the general procedures found in Appendix A before this policy formally moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKenzie. And as you know, that is on this evening's agenda, and we will be discussing it later this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Okay, well, thank you. We will move on then to our information items. Our first item this evening is an overview of our high school innovative programs. We do reviews and updates for the community on a monthly basis, and this evening it is our high school programs. We have with us this evening David Law, Don Bosch, and Tim Wald to give us an overview of our high school programs. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming us here tonight. We're pleased to speak about a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and that's innovation at our high school. For years, White Bear Lake High School has offered innovative programs, and over the past decade, we've been thankful for board support to offer innovative courses like biochemistry, a course you won't see in very many high schools in Minnesota. 10 College in the Schools and Entry Point College in the Schools programs offered in conjunction with the University of Minnesota. 5 Project Lead the Way courses that are bringing STEM courses to our students, 15 advanced placement courses. All of these courses give our students the skill set, the 21st century skills they need to be successful as they move on to their post-secondary opportunities. Over the past couple years, we've asked you specifically for approval of some very innovative programs. And tonight we have some teachers and some students who are going to share their experience as these programs have been implemented at our high school. My colleague, North Campus Principal Don Bosch, will introduce the outstanding teachers and students who are going to tell you a little bit about their programs tonight.
Good evening, Don. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. We are going to highlight 3 programs this evening. Our first program is our Project Lead the Way program. Specifically, we're going to look at our most recent course that we've added to the curriculum. That's our biotechnology engineering program. This is our first year for our students to have the opportunity to participate in the biotech course. At this time, I would like to introduce our 2 biotech teachers here this evening, Rita Leonard from the South Campus and Becky Carlson from the North Campus, who will give you a brief description of the course and introduce the students we have here this evening. So Rita and Becky and students.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. My portion of this presentation is to talk about the Project Lead the Way program and what is involved with the teacher training of it. To even be considered to enroll in the Project Lead the Way course, you must complete an online pre-assessment that contains questions related to course subject matter, as well as general computer and mathematical skills, and pass at 75%. The next step was to attend a core training at St. Cloud State University for 10 days last summer. This course was taught by a master teacher who had expertise in instructing previous biotechnical engineering courses from Greenfield, Indiana. The professional development to become proficient in the Project Lead the Way curriculum involves the APPB learning model. The components include activities, projects, problems, which provide powerful opportunities for student learning. The best way for teachers to acquire an understanding of APPB learning is to experience the student process in addressing the problem and designing a solution. We actually work through activities, projects, and problems as the students would. This direct experience of walking in student shoes to solve problems and design projects helps a teacher to reflect on the power of APPB learning. And now, Rebecca Carlson.
Good evening. Rita commented on walking in student shoes, so we worked our way through the same units of study and experiments that the students explore. Throughout the year, students are discovering material and designing experiments and presentations to demonstrate their understanding of the material. The study starts by exploring the nature of engineering and the precision and accuracy of instruments. The class then discusses the ethics involved in biotechnical engineering, such as genetically modified organisms, and how other occupations and the stock market influence the research and success of engineering companies. Next, they cover DNA and the different ways it is used and manipulated in our society, from aiding and stopping disease outbreaks or analyzing crime scenes, to alternating organisms' DNA to produce proteins in mass quantities for pharmaceutical needs. Next, they move into biofuels and how to use yeast to power a car, and how to use living organisms to clean up environmental spills. Finally, the students study how engineering has changed the treatment and procedures for medical patients through ECGs and medical implants. And now to hear from the students themselves, we have junior Alex Ross, sophomore Lindsay Buell, and sophomore Taylor Krivenek. Alex?
Thank you and welcome, students.
Hello. I'm Alex Ross, like she said, from South, and this year's been really actually very challenging in biotech. I got into it because I've always had this interest in engineering in general, and throughout the year we've learned different things, like she said, about fermentation, and most recently crime scene investigating, and right now we are doing gene expression, and it's very, very interesting, and I believe it's going to help us in the future with people who actually want to pursue this career, because it actually gives us an in-depth look, and experience is the biggest thing that I feel it's really helping the students with. Thank you.
I'm Lindsay Buell from North, and going into this class, I was looking to investigate engineering careers that I possibly might want to go into. And I knew from my engineering class last year that lab reports and technical reports would be essential to any engineering career, but I wasn't really sure how to write them. And now I can say that I definitely know how to write them, since we have one like every unit. And I also really love the independent learning style we have in the class. It's really hands-on, and in the experiments, you basically teach yourself.
Hi, I'm Taylor Krivenek. I took biotech engineering because I've always been interested in a science or engineering career, but I haven't really had the opportunity to look more in depth into any of the topics. And the class throughout the year has really shed a light on all of the different areas of each, both engineering and science. My favorite part about biotech engineering is the hands-on learning, and like Lindsay said, the independence of it. We really get to investigate our own problems. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's really an awesome experience to walk by the classroom and watch them in action in biotech. I have to say, I wasn't too certain about the crime scene when I walked by the first time and had to take a double take to see what was going on in the classroom, but it was really neat. So thank you, Rita. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, students. The second program we're going to highlight tonight is AVID. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. We are in our year 2 of our AVID implementation. Last year, our 9th graders had the opportunity to enroll in the AVID program. This year, it's been expanded to our 10th graders. And next year, it will be expanded to our 11th graders as well as our 8th graders at both of our middle schools. At this time, I'd like to introduce Shelley Michael, one of our AVID elective teachers, who will briefly talk about the program and introduce the AVID students we have here this evening. Shelley?
Welcome, Shelley, and welcome, students. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. Over 40% of U.S. college students require academic remediation in their freshman year of college. 40% is also the national college dropout rate in the United States. You can imagine that the loss of revenue due to these two factors is estimated in the billions of dollars across the U.S., and we can only guess what the economic impact is to White Bear Lake area communities. The Achievement via Individual Determination, or AVID program, seeks out the least served students, those students who are most at risk to become one of these statistics, and the students that are in the academic middle in our school system here at White Bear. We prepare the students not just to get into college, but we prepare our students to succeed in college. The program supports our students in rigorous AP or honors courses. We teach students organizational and study skills. This is a daily elective that students attend. We focus on higher level thinking and problem solving skills in everything that we do. We teach college writing, reading, and note-taking strategies, and we emphasize collaborative learning in almost everything that we do at AVID. AVID is not just a standalone elective in the high schools and soon-to-be middle schools, but the AVID philosophy, AVID is a national program, the AVID philosophy also actively engages the entire school in college readiness strategies. For example, I think almost 50% of the teachers at the North Campus building actively teach, train, and utilize Cornell note-taking systems in their classes, which is something that the AVID coordinators and teachers have brought to professional learning throughout the years. These are some of the strategies that AVID uses to prepare college-ready citizens. More importantly, two of our AVID students are here with us tonight. Vijay Lee and Shadow Mua would like to describe to you their AVID experience and how AVID has impacted their lives. Vijay.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Like Ms. Michael said, my name is Vijay, and I think that if it wasn't for AVID, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because back in middle school when I first started, I used to think that getting C's were okay, because just like every other kid, I worked hard too, but then now because of AVID, I'm working hard to get straight A's and planning to go to a four-year college.
Welcome.
My name is Shadow, and I think AVID has helped me a lot, and not just from the notes and everything. It's helped me with striving for my goals, and it really changed what I wanted to become, because when I started, before I was in AVID, I wanted to follow my mom's footsteps. And personally, I was like, okay, I'm going to become a social worker because we're so similar. But now, since I'm in AVID, I see that maybe that's not what I want to do. Maybe I want to do something that fits me more. And that changed my goals to becoming something in the medical field. And yeah, AVID just helped me think more and strive for my future more.
Thank you.
Thank you, students, for sharing your perspectives. We really appreciate your being here tonight.
Our AVID slide didn't get, we had some technical difficulties with our PowerPoint, but I wanted to point out one of the slides most recently. You'll see the students around the Winona State University. They took a trip last Friday, both our 9th and 10th grade AVID students, and just had a wonderful opportunity to visit Winona State and talk to admissions counselors and just give them that perspective of what's life like after high school. So thank you, AVID participants. Our final program that we're going to highlight this evening is our aviation program. You might have seen in the Star Tribune recently a published article on our aviation program and the many opportunities it provides our students. At this time, I think we have Peter Pittman here, our AVID instructor, who will talk a little bit about our program and introduce the aviation students he has here this evening. So Peter and students.
Good evening, Mr. Pittman. Good evening, students. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Aviation and spaceflight, a dynamic and rapidly growing industry. These professions in these fields will need educated and skilled workers to not only replace those pilots, technicians, and engineers who will soon be retiring, but also to fill the newly created, highly paid positions necessitated by invention. The Patrick Marzatelli Foundation honors the memory of Patrick, his passion for learning, and his love for science and aviation, and is dedicated to helping White Bear Lake area high school students develop that same passion for learning through an innovative high school aviation and aerospace program. This newly created course opens doors for White Bear Lake students to investigate further educational opportunities that will lead to lucrative careers in aviation and aerospace. The course teaches the students the principles of flight from a scientific and technological perspective, provides them an introduction to general, commercial, and military aviation careers, and prepares them to pass the FAA private pilot knowledge exam, the first step in obtaining a pilot's certificate. I would like you to meet some of the students from the first aviation and aerospace class at White Bear Lake High School, and I boldly predict that the first human being who will be walking on Mars will be addressing you in just a few moments.
Welcome, students. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us. My name is Keenan Carlson. I'm a senior at South Campus, and I took this class last semester, and it was really fun. We went through an online program. It was ground school, basic knowledge, and it showed us the fundamental skills for getting our private pilot's license, and we're hopefully taking the test sooner or later. And we really got to experience it outside of the classroom, too, through couple field trips, and we went out flying, and some of us got to fly the planes, which was one of the funnest things I've ever done for anything with school. But it's really interesting, and I'm going to St. Cloud next year for Earth and Space Sciences, and we even cover meteorology and stuff in the class because it's a big part of aviation, and there's a lot of different things that go along with it. And yeah, it's a really fun course, and I'm really glad I took it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Josh Hosick, and I'm a class of 2012. And before I took the class, I was thinking about being air traffic control, and this class confirmed my interest in the aviation business. And the thing I enjoyed about the class was it basically was a free ground school, and also we had a full simulator and time in the air too. So I also like flying, and I should be enrolling in UND for air traffic control here next following years, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Carly Rylander, senior at South Campus, and I'm one of the 2 girls that actually took this aviation course, and I have to say, flying a plane is a blast. And really, I took this course, I'm more interested in weather, and I thought, well, flying a plane, it has to do with weather. So I took this course, and it really opened my eyes to what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years. I have been accepted to UND up in Grand Forks for aviation and meteorology, so it's basically put a step in my life, and this is what the course did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Vang, and I'm a senior at White Bear Lake South Campus. I took this course because I was planning on joining the military in field of aviation, and after getting up in the air and flying a couple of times, I've decided that it's something that I'm willing to do. Thank you.
Thank you all for providing your perspectives. We really appreciate it.
Well, this concludes our presentation this evening. I would like to thank Dr. Lovett and the school board members for giving us an opportunity to showcase some of our most recent innovative programs that we offer our students here at the high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. You may come back anytime. You're just full of great information. Thanks again. Moving on to our second information this evening is the superintendent's report, and I challenge you, Dr. Lovett, to have a more interesting report than our innovative high school programs.
Madam Chair, members of the board, could I just play the tape of the last 15 minutes over again? Earlier today at South Campus, Mr. Wald was hosting a group from Pakistan who were here to visit White Bear Lake Area High School. Can you see why they were so impressed? Just a remarkable place with innovation. And that's just scratching the surface. But we're so happy to have the students with us this evening. That really tells the story. We're very proud of their efforts. A couple of things that are coming up, and will slides appear by magic? One is that in addition to the musical and the play that we've already celebrated, that is, last month we celebrated the achievements of our fall musical, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and this evening, before the board meeting, we commemorated and celebrated the achievement of Radium Girls, which was our one-act play that went on to the one-act festival at the state. 2 new productions are coming. One is The Government Inspector, which will be March 29th, 30th, and 31st at North Campus, and then Guys and Dolls, which will be the middle school performance in April. And for those interested, all the information will be on the website, but some really exciting developments in the White Bear Lake area high school and middle school theater program. We'd also like to acknowledge teachers in the news. We've been not acknowledging some of our students and teachers here today, but Mary Dolly, who you remember as last year's Teacher of the Year, most recently was named the Student Council Advisor of the Year for the state of Minnesota. And Mr. Matt Danielson, who we see sometimes in person and sometimes on video and sometimes both at the same time. We found out this past week that he's a semifinalist for the Minnesota Teacher of the Year. This is wonderful news, but both Mary Dolly last year and now Matt this year have both achieved that semifinalist competition, so they're among the top 30 teachers in the state of Minnesota, and so honored. A couple of other things that we have going on right now. We sent about 2,000 postcards out to our preschool parents who have little tots to 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds who will be starting kindergarten next year. And the reason we did that is that as part of our elementary world language study, we really want to understand what those preschool parents think about what kinds of opportunities in world language they will want for their children. So we have that survey open for a couple more weeks. Many parents had taken it earlier just based on our electronic newsletters. Other parents took this survey when they went in for conferences this past week, but still open for any parents who hear this news or who are in the audience, but we're especially targeting now our preschool parents, learning what they would like to see in terms of world language.
And how long is that survey open?
The survey will be open until March 19th. But we'll also watch as it's coming in. If we're still getting a lot on March 19th, we'll keep it open a little bit longer. The key thing is that we want to hear from parents about what's important for them. You may have seen in the White Bear Lake press here recently a picture of the governor being served at our very own Donatelli's. If you look very closely at the picture, you'll see a little bit of my ear. I know that wasn't the most exciting part of the picture, but here we see on the side student Nicole Nelson serving her governor, her principal, and me, and doing a wonderful job of it. This is part of the outreach, that wonderful outreach in partnership between Donatelli's and Willow Lane Elementary. Students actually apply for the jobs. They get to choose what they think they would like, so they can apply for server or cook or maitre d'. What is the proper term if you're in 5th grade?
Hostess.
Hostess?
Host or hostess.
Oh, whatever. But they did that. And I'd like to, this is not a political comment, but the governor was as gracious as anyone could be. This was not a political visit. There were cameras there. There were folks interested in his opinions, but he paid attention to every child. He was interested in their resumes and just was a wonderful gentleman. When the press came by and with the cameras and everything, they said, "Governor, we're really eager to get your opinion on the Stillwater Bridge and on the Viking Stadium." And he said, "Just tell everybody to meet me at Donatelli's for lunch." So it was a wonderful time. 2 more Tuesdays, tomorrow noon, and then 2 weeks from tomorrow are additional opportunities to have lunch at Donatelli's and be served by our 5th graders from Willow Lane. Something else that's been in the news the last couple of weeks is that our high school was represented by many outstanding band performers recently in the Region 4 AA Instrumental Solo Ensemble Music Contest. A total of 98 high school students participated, 15 of them playing multiple pieces. When the results were tallied, our White Bear Lake Area High School received 49 awards of excellent, 65 awards of superior, and 1 best of sight for a young lady that was honored earlier this evening for being part of Radium Girls, and that was Carolyn Held in the French horn. So wonderful recognition of our band program. So, Michelle, your turn.
Good evening. I have some updates for White Bear Lake High School. Last Wednesday, March 7th, was the Spread the Word to End the Word Day for the Special Olympics program, and it really encouraged kids to stop the use of the R word. There was a banner that kids could sign at lunch, and T-shirts were sold, and it was a great day. We've never had that at South Campus before. Also, Battle of the Bands begins March 27th, Tuesday at 7 p.m. at South Campus, and it allows kids who like to start up their own garage bands at home to come and audition to try it out on stage, and gives a chance for the community to see them. Also, as Dr. Levitt mentioned, the spring play, The Government Inspector, begins on March 29th, and it sounds like, from what I've heard, that it's going to be very hilarious. Also, I want to congratulate the girls' basketball team, and they're moving on to state. Their game will be on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Also, I want to congratulate the Symphonic Band for earning an excellent and the Wind Ensemble Band for earning a superior at contest last Tuesday. I'm a part of that Wind Ensemble Band, and I was also at the contest that Dr. Lovett mentioned. Also, spring break is coming up next week, and kids are getting very excited for it, and I hope it has warm weather all week for everyone. So, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm glad you reminded me. I'd forgotten totally about spring break. A couple of other things in the news. This week, our residents will be receiving our annual report from this past year, and we have copies for you here today as well. And that's part of our obligation in terms of reporting the requirement that the state gives us to report on how our students are doing to the public. And finally, those of you who've been watching this evening know that we honored students before the school board meeting this evening. Another wonderful time. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett and Michelle. Dr. Lovett, I do have one question for you with regard to our annual report. This report is available online, correct?
That is correct.
And it's not something that's mailed to all residents.
This is mailed to our community, all of our residents.
Oh, it is.
But we send it bulk rate, so people may be getting it at different times. So it's an obligation that we have to inform all of our residents of how our students are doing, and we find that by sending it to everyone, bulk rate, our overall cost for the publication and mailing is very, very low. I think it's something on the order of 29 cents per copy for all total. So we hope that our community will take advantage of it, and we also have a new feature this year. Marissa Vetti, our communications director, can show you all the details, but if you have a smartphone, you can link in and get additional information online. So actually it's a combination of some paper, but also using the newest technology to link to more information online.
Thank you. Well, moving on then to discussion items this evening. We have before you 5 policies, and as a matter of review, these 5 policies, the first, Policy 406, Public and Private Personnel Data, is an update of our own records on personnel and public data. The second, first reading of School Board Policy 496, is a new policy that we will discuss tonight, faculty and staff dress and appearance. The next 3 policies, 532, 619, and 903, are all with regard to MSBA update recommendations. These 5 policies have been before the policy committee of the school district, and they are before you this evening for a first reading, and they will be in our packet next month as well. So because the Policy 496, Faculty and Staff Dress and Appearance, is a new policy to the district, I would turn this to Dr. Lovett for introduction, please.
I'll acknowledge this briefly. This policy has actually been in working drafts over most of the past probably 8 to 10 months. As Dr. McKenzie, our Teacher Association president, remarked, they've been involved with it. They still are interested in a little bit of fine-tuning. This policy is really about making sure that we're at our best when we're working with students and when we're working with families and when we're working with one another. We have high expectations for students in terms of dress and appearance, and we haven't to this point actually had a written standard for our teachers and other staff members. This puts in place a standard. That said, there's room for some fine-tuning. I know the board policy committee has gone through several drafts. We've received extensive feedback from our community. This is really the first reading, and in some cases in the past we've brought up a first reading and we've done some additional fine-tuning and delayed a month or done some fine-tuning for that. In other cases, we brought it back in the same form. So the reason for having a first reading and a second reading is to make sure we're giving notice to our school community that the policy is under consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett. So all 5 policies are before you this evening, and again, will be before you next month. And in the meantime, you are encouraged to provide input to the policy committee and to administration with regard to the policies, and the input does continue. Thank you. Are there any questions about any of these policies at this point? All right, we will move on then. Thank you all. We'll move on to operational items. Our first item this evening is action on our middle school level international baccalaureate application. And before our discussion this evening, as an update, I would ask for a motion to approve the IB application candidacy for both Central and Sunrise middle schools.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second and discussion, and we have both Bob McDowell and Noel Schmidt and David Law here with us this evening to also provide some background. And as a matter of background for the community, we did have information before us at our last work study meeting as well. So thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. As you stated, Madam Chair, that we have had this conversation at the last work study meeting. With me tonight are Dr. Bob McDowell and Dr. Noel Schmidt to summarize the district's long journey towards candidacy for International Baccalaureate Middle Years Program, and I'll let them take the stage.
Thank you. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dr. Schmidt and I are here tonight formally to talk about the International Baccalaureate Middle Years Program as it relates to having both Central Middle School and Sunrise Park Middle School submit applications for candidacy. We would like to provide a very short history and overview of the intended program and our recommendation. The exploration of the International Baccalaureate Middle Years Program for the middle schools began approximately in 2004. Since that time, multiple staff from each building have been trained and visited middle year program sites. The middle school restructuring then of 2008 produced a curricular scheduling change compatible with IB programming. This past year, staff from other middle year programs, schools, have visited White Bear Lake staff, and both Dr. Schmidt and I have had formal conversations with our parent organizations regarding International Baccalaureate, both experiencing positive feedback. In addition, the 2011 strategic planning process produced a recommendation in the final document to expand our current IB programming based on multiple subcommittee recommendations. Oh, you can go back, sorry. The Middle Years program consists of a framework which puts students at the center, as you can see on the left, the circle there. The 8 subject areas are very similar to the subjects that our students experience now. In fact, our current middle school schedule will accommodate the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program with a few scheduling adjustments. What the Middle Years program brings to our already strong programming is a framework for consistency in planning, instruction, and assessment. It adds the areas of interaction, which you can see are right around the IB learner profile. On this slide, the overlapping areas stem from the student center to the curricular areas, driving interdisciplinary units, unit creation for obvious content connections to the areas of environment, health and social education, community service, human ingenuity, and approaches to learning. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Schmidt.
I have been waiting, literally, for years to be standing in front of you asking this question, and I couldn't be prouder as a White Bear Lake staff member than I am tonight. We have 5 main but brief reasons why we believe the International Baccalaureate is a good thing for our kids in White Bear Lake. This has come out of a lot of research. 2 major strategic planning committees looked at it in depth. Both of the committees that recommended that the district move forward with the MYP IB program were those charged with the academics with rigor. Both committees separately came to the conclusion after studying it that this was a good thing and that we should look for it for our kids. We've done our homework. We have visited other schools, They have visited us. One school we visited twice. This whole thing started in 2004. This has been a long road. This is not a committee that suddenly grew up and then talked about it and decided they were going to do it. This has been, for me, this has been 8 years from start to where we are right now. For others, it has been the ebb and flow. We've done our homework. It also is a continuation of the successful elementary program we have, and so we're seeing the middle years program as a natural extension as far as where our elementary kids will be going. And we know that we do have a parent base who is looking for something like this. And so we believe that bringing the IB to the middle years program will provide a natural extension of what already is occurring in the elementary. We've talked to staff, we've talked to parents, we've talked to community members, and especially with the parents, whenever we talk with them a little bit about what the IB is, inevitably they will look at me and they'll say, why wouldn't we do this? It makes a lot of sense to the folks that we've talked to. In addition to that, and the last point up there is that there is no other MYP program in any of our adjacent school districts. They are scattered throughout other parts of the Twin Cities, but there is no other MYP program in the area. We know from talking to other schools, and every school has a little bit different experience, that that's going to have perceived values for some families. And then I'm going to add one on there that's not there, is that in my heart of hearts, as I started as an English teacher, then I was a school psychologist, then I was a dean of students, then I was an associate principal. I've been past president of the Minnesota Middle School Association, and lately principal at Central Middle School. In my heart of hearts, this is a good deal for our kids to bring something like this to White Bear Lake.
Thank you, Dr. Schmidt.
That's it. At this time, we'd field questions.
Great, thank you. So we do have a motion and a second before us. And are there any questions or comments by board members for our guests this evening? Yes, Kim.
Noel or Bob, if you could just kind of go over a little bit again what you did in the work study session about, in terms of the question from parents of kids in non-IB schools, elementary schools, non-Matoska, in other words, is how are those kids going to integrate in this type of setting? And if you could just speak to that so that the people here and also watching on cable would get a sense of what that all means.
Sure, I can respond to that because at this point in time I have students coming from Matoska as well as students coming from other elementary schools that aren't in the primary years program. And at this point we experience students similar to other students that are excited about learning, that are excited to be a part of our middle school just as they were part of their own elementary school. What we're finding from our Matoska students is a true sense of understanding the ability to inquire and to really take on perspectives of asking the questions that will get them to understanding what it is we're trying to get them to learn. We've experienced that from our Matoska students.
In terms of integration, though, are they going to be at a loss, by not being at Matoska, the other elementaries that are going to be funneling into are they going to be at a disadvantage or behind the process somewhere?
I don't think so at all, because the middle years program itself starts a base of students much like the PYP program does for its younger students. And so there isn't a loss that a non-PYP student would have over a PYP student. That sixth grade group of International Baccalaureate Exploration would all start together in that process as part of the middle years program, which has a little bit different focus, but it embodies all of the same principles of that student being the center of the learning, and having the focus of the content areas strive to be more connected. So I don't see any loss for a student not having come from a PYP program entering into a MYP program.
Good, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Bob?
Well, I'd just like to thank you for your patience and your effort. As you said, it's taken some time, and we're kind of entering the home stretch here, but I recognize all the things that you've been doing over these years to prepare the school district for a smooth transition for this. This isn't just a last-minute thought. This is something that has had years of planning and transition and preparation, and now it's just time to take the last few steps, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Bob. Other questions or comments? George?
I just wanted to clarify the probable timeline. Should it be approved?
The probable timeline is that once we would like the green light, then there's an application, it's called application for candidacy, that has to be completed by April 1st. We send that in, and then for the next 2 years, IB folk talk with us, we talk with them, we train the teachers, we go slow at first, giving the teachers the time to work on the IB units, and then after 2 years, then our goal would be to bring the IB folk in, and they conduct what they would call the final visit, where they look at you and say, you're good to go, or these are the things you need to work on. So we're looking at a 2 to 3 year timeline dependent upon what happens. That make sense?
2014.
2014, yeah.
George?
Just another question for maybe David Law or Dr. Lovett. So then it seems the next logical step to consider would be then moving it up to the consideration of moving to the junior, senior level.
We've already been doing some exploration with our North Campus administration and teachers. They've attended some IB training to look at, there are 2 different programs that would apply for that, the North Campus. One would be the diploma program, which is an 11-12 program, and they could be working towards a diploma program or a continuation of the middle years program. We're early in that process of exploring what North Campus the role that North Campus might play in the middle years program or IB expansion.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Michelle?
I was just wondering if you could explain what's different about the IB program in the classroom versus other schools' programs in the classroom.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Here's what our kids would see. What our kids are going to experience, because the IB is more whole child, what we're going to see, not what we want to see. What we're going to see is you're going to see more projects. You'll see fewer worksheets. You'll see more presentations. You'll see more scenario building. You'll see more discussions looking at problems that exist outside of White Bear Lake, trying to look at them. You'll see a much more debates, more debate type pros, cons of the situations. In a nutshell, that's what our kids are going to experience.
Thanks. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Well, I'd just like to lay down a challenge to you. Matoska went through the candidacy and the application process, which is quite lengthy and very intense. And the final visit was, I would say, very intense for the staff. And they passed on their first application, which is rare, as I understand it. So, they have set the standard. But seriously, I thank you for all your work on this and taking this forward and giving our students more opportunities in our school district. Thank you very much. So we're excited about it. So we do have a motion and a second before us, and we've had discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you all again. We appreciate it. Next item on our agenda, operational item, action on bid award for our North Campus roof replacement project. Another summer project, and we have in our board packet a recommendation by administration to award the project to McPhillip Brothers Roofing. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next operational item is action on the bid award for the central boiler replacement. And you will see in your board packet that administration is recommending we reject all the bids for this particular project at this time. The bids all came in much higher than budgeted. So is there a motion to take the administration's recommendation to reject all the bids on the central boiler replacement project?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item is action on the bid award for the Hugo AC implementation project. And recommendation by administration is to award the project to General Sheet Metal Company. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next action item is action on our annual fund transfer to community services. Is there a motion to approve the fund transfer of $388,000?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Again, this is an annual action item. Seeing none, yes, Janet, thank you.
I have one question. The memo says that the initial levy was passed as an ongoing levy, but legislation was created since that time requiring this levy, along with all others, to sunset and be periodically renewed by the community. What is the timetable for the periodic renewal?
Call on Mr. Wilcoxon on that one.
Welcome, Pete.
Thanks, Madam Chair, members of the board. When operating levies were first implemented in the state of Minnesota, they were ongoing. There was no sunset as there is today. So this community ed transfer is contiguous with our 6-year operating levy that we just passed in November.
Right. So this one predates the legislative requirement that levies be periodically renewed. So this one could go on ad infinitum.
No, it had to sunset.
Oh, all right. So
it sunset, I believe it was in 1998 when the board made a decision there was a decision point in the late 90s. And from that point forward, all operating levies are for a specific period not to exceed 10 years.
So is this one now renewed on the same cycle as our
It's become part of our operating levy.
Okay. Very good. That answers my question. Thank you, Pete.
Any other questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Operational item number 6 is action on write-off of uncollectible NSF checks. You'll see that in your board packet. And there's information and detail on the uncollectible funds recommended by the Finance Department. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation on these uncollectible funds?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please. Yes, I'm sorry, Bob. Excuse me.
Is there a district policy with regards to continuing to accept checks from anyone who's provided an NSF check in the past?
Board Member Shevik, as much as we would like to have that implemented, it doesn't always work that way, and sometimes you do get checks again from people. This isn't a lot of money. It isn't a real big problem in our district. We do have a collection agency that we turn them over to before it gets to this point in the process, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not enough money to make it worth the effort. I was just wondering if we from an administrative standpoint, had those steps in place.
Well, Mary Vasky is very aggressive in calling schools and saying, so-and-so now bounced their third check. Maybe we shouldn't take any more. But sometimes they do slip through.
Thank you.
Just say, Pete, just recalling from, or trying to call from years past, is this kind of in the neighborhood of what annually typically?
Yeah, I look back, the last time we did this was 2 years ago. I think it was $2,700. But this is a 2-year total. It's not just for 1 year.
I was just curious about the economy and whether there's been any trends with that.
Yeah, it's up a little bit, but not that much.
George.
I just thought it might be worth just stating for those who don't have the written that the total amount representing checks for 2010 and 2011 is $3,200.01.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second before us to accept the write-off of uncollectible checks. Seeing no other discussion, then a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Next item is the tentative agreement, the 2011 through 2013 contract for confidential secretaries. Information in your board packet. Is there a motion to accept that tentative agreement?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Discussion. Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We have 3 second readings of policies before you this evening. Second reading of School Board Policy 614 with regard to school district testing plan and procedure. Policy 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs. Section 504, plans and LEP students. And the third policy 616 with regard to school district system accountability. Second reading, I would entertain a motion to accept all 3 policies. So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Yes, George.
Yeah, just to note that on the testing, policies, they've been reviewed extensively by administration and policy committee, and opportunity for suggested revisions and so forth. And most of these changes for the testing has to do with updating to new terminology, updating to new MSBA templates, and just MDE rules and processes.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Last action item this evening is the recommendation to the school board to accept the proposed 2012-13 Equity and Integration Revenue Plan for submission to the State Department of Education. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. David Law is here this evening to give us an overview of this budget proposal to the Department of Ed. Welcome, David.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Before you tonight is our proposal for the 2012-2013 calendar year equity and integration budget. As you're all aware, the state is continuously reviewing integration funding. We're fortunate as a member of the East Metro Integration District to receive funding to support initiatives intended to close the achievement gap, make students college ready, and take advantage of other combined district initiatives such as the AVID program. Our proposal tonight reflects a small adjustment that the EMID school board made to put more money back in the cooperating districts and keep less at the centralized EMID district. We have proportioned out that money according to our district initiatives of connecting with students through our cultural liaisons. The bulk of the money goes towards academic programming such as AVID. There's also funding for staff development within there and very minimal overhead for administrative costs and partnerships with the St. Paul School District. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? David, I do have one question for you. Is it accurate that the dollars we receive from the state for being a member of the collaborative, 90% goes to the programming and staff development? It's only 10% goes to administrative costs.
Actually, for our district, it's about 1%.
Wow, that's fabulous.
We use very little centrally. We put almost all the money out into the schools and with students directly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I thought there was a state standard on that or a
the
rule,
state standard is the percentage of, it's no more than 10%.
Yeah.
But we stay way under that.
Good to hear. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. We have a motion and a second before us to accept the 2012-13 Equity and Integration Revenue Plan. Roll call vote, please.
Shevik.
Aye.
Story, aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Heinecker.
Aye.
Kimball.
Aye.
And Newberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Last item on our agenda is the board forum. It's an opportunity for board members to share information with colleagues and with the community. Does anyone have anything this evening for board forum? Janet.
On March 2nd and 3rd, I accompanied 18 South Campus students from the Ambassadors Program and the SOAR Program up to Duluth for 2 days. When we got up there, these kids worked for 6 hours at the Hartley Nature Center in the city of Duluth, clearing buckthorn in knee-deep snow. We then went out to dinner Friday night, where we were joined by students from both St. Scholastica and University of Minnesota Duluth. Saturday morning, we got up, broke into 2 groups. Half of the kids toured UMD, and half of the kids toured St. Scholastica. And the tour of UMD was led by White Bear High School graduates Alex Becker and Sam Huberty. I want to report that the City of Duluth Parks Department that arranged our service opportunity for us on Friday said this was the best group of volunteers they've ever had. They worked hard, not one complaint and not one whine out of anybody, even though they were sopping wet and freezing cold at the end of the day. Way to go, South Campus students.
Thank you. Are there anyone else have anything for board forum? Bob.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment on the innovation section of the program tonight, when we got to hear a little bit about what's going on at the high school level with innovative classes. I guess from my perspective, it's outstanding to see the growth and that kind of thing continue. I have one challenge that I want to put out there, and that is I want to see those courses get a math science accreditation to free up electives so that students interested in pursuing those types of opportunities still have the opportunity to pursue music and language and other elective courses as well. So I just, that's something that I don't want to take our eyes off of, and we continue to work towards that.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? George.
On February 23rd, I had the honor of serving as a judge at the Vadnais Heights Elementary Art and Science Fair. And It's like it was amazing. There were art or science projects with heavy things being put into midair, suspended somehow. There were target fields made of sugar cubes. There just were amazing things, and it was a pleasure to be there and see all of this amazing work of these students. And then the other thing I have is that, as always around this time of year, we have some staff retirements, and we just want to thank staff who are choosing to retire for their work. I know we have at least one teacher retiring after a 14-year career, and thank you for your work. And to all who have worked for us and are leaving us, we'll miss you, and best wishes.
Thank you, George. Anyone else? Then I'll close by just saying that I've been very fortunate to participate with the Matoska IB, 5th grade IB exhibition project again this year, and Dr. Lovett has been serving as a mentor as well. This is an amazing project by our 5th grade students, and it's huge. David, you are also a mentor. It's an incredible amount of work for about 8 weeks for our 5th grade students and the staff. It's deep research in 5th grade. They're learning, as my children did at Otter Lake Elementary, some great research skills. This is a project that our Matoska 5th graders do, and they've learned research skills, interviewing skills, presentation skills, and it's a higher level thinking type of research project, and the kids have really done a fabulous job. There is a public presentation this Thursday morning and afternoon, and I'd certainly invite our local press to cover all the hard work that the kids have done this Thursday to see their accomplishments. It's just fabulous. So I thank our district and our staff for all they do for our students, because we provide great opportunities in every building at every level in this district, and that's just one example of what we're doing in the district for our students. So thank you all. Is there anyone else? Okay, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Janet. Meeting adjourned.